All right, what's up? This is Frequent, and today we're going to be talking about this guy, which is Rift Filter Lite. And this is a filter, just like any filter you'd find in, your DAW or any synth or anything like that. But it has a ton of extra features in here that's going to make it pretty much replacing auto filter in Ableton for me. And honestly, it's doing a lot for me that I didn't expect it to, even outside of Rift, which is the main plugin it's pulled from. And this, I mean, it's free. Also, there's that, and it's super lightweight, and there's no reason not to be using this over your default filters. We're going to go over why right now. So I'm going to do a quick overview of how this thing works, and then we're going to dive right into sounds and just go over some use cases and actually get into it. So quick overview, you got cutoff resonance just like any other filter. The catch here is that this resonance is going to go way higher than most filters go. It's going to go way higher than your default auto filter. I did a test earlier. On some white noise, I'd say it goes about twice as far. I don't have any sort of scientific readout for you, unfortunately, but it's going to boost a lot. And you need to know this because it might sound like too much at first if you're just using one of these default filters, especially, but this is going to be really important for the juicy stuff, which is getting into all the crazy filter types and all that. So anyways, you got resonance, cutoff, super basic. You've got a spread, which is basically just going to offset a filter on each speaker with however much offset you have here is going to just move these frequencies on either side. Now we have a left-right pan. With these two different low passes or whatever filter you use, it works on all of them. And then you have the morph, and the morph is honestly probably the main standout feature of this for me. There's other cool stuff as well, but the morph is basically going to be these very customized modulations for each filter type we have here. And these are going to be doing some pretty advanced changes, as you can see here. So we can just take a look at some of these different presets here, and these are all just different filter shapes that come with their own independent modulations on the morph. And honestly, this is why you want the filter, is because of all the time that they put into putting a bunch of actually usable filter types in here, and B, making them all work harmonically, which I'm going to get into in a second. So you need to know about morph, which is going to just be a specific set of modulations for each filter type. You need to know about cutoff, spread, resonance, and the mix, which is just a dry wet for the whole thing. And then the last bit right here is going to be your tuning modes. So default is just going to be hertz, meaning just like any other filter, you just choose the frequency here in hertz, but it also has two extra modes here. First one is going to be MIDI mode. If you go to the left here, this is going to allow you to essentially send in an external MIDI signal, and then that's going to be key mapping anything you do in Rift. It's going to change your frequency relative to the note you press, and then you can offset the value here in semitones. So if we did it up 12, it's going to play one octave up on the fundamental from whatever you have playing. And we'll get into this in a sec. The other mode is going to be tune mode. They have changed these names, but tune mode is basically just going to let you sync this to notes no matter what. So anywhere you put this knob, instead of just being an arbitrary frequency, is going to be a frequency that exactly corresponds to a musical note. And then the last button you need to know on this guy is this right here. And this is going to actually allow you to set this note lock to be only specific notes. So like, for instance, if we wanted to go all white notes and just have it be C major, now, even though this readout isn't going to actually show you, now it's locking to only C major. And we can see this pretty easily if we just choose one note. So say we choose an F, now it's going to only lock to F in the scale, and you can't really see it on the readout, but watch over here, you can see it quantizing to the F all along. Okay, great. So that's how everything works. Obviously, you can choose these presets, which is just going to be all these crazy filter types. You got your basic ones, which are just normal, and they don't have a morph. And then on the rest of them, other than this basic menu, you're going to get a morph, and it's going to do some crazy shit. And yeah, this is what we care about. So let's just stop talking about it and actually use it. So I got a few things loaded up here. Just to make this a little bit faster. These are all just some different presets that are going to showcase these different tuning modes specifically, and then we're just going to play with a bunch of these different preset filter types. So first sound is just going to be a bass sound. We'll play it a little lower. This is just a really basic phase plant with some wavetables and a distortion, and then I have a ton of stock compression and distortion and reverb on here. You can look at it. There's nothing crazy happening. It's just distort, 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 compress, compress, distort, distort, and then a reverb in the middle. And it sounds like this. All right, so pretty good sound, but now if we add Rift Filter, this is where the real magic happens. So we can now just turn this on. I'm going to crank this resonance, which again, remember this resonance is super peaky, goes super high, but I have all this compression compensating for that. And now... So yeah, it's pretty good. Now we can go and just like try any of these. Let's try the phaser. Something fun I also like to try is just mapping both the morph and the cutoff to one macro. If you just bounce this out, we have all of our mappable parameters right here, which is nice. There's not that many of them, so we just put both of these here, and then we're good to go. You get the idea. This next one is going to be using just kind of this really dull pluck. And then again, same sort of effects chain on here. It's just going to be a bunch of compression, distortion, and then one reverb in the middle. So let's listen to it with that. And you can hear how the OTT is just like pulling all that reverb, and this glue compressor just pulling all that reverb tail out of there, and then allowing us to be pretty aggressive with any sort of input we have going on here. So on this one, we have a few things. I, first of all, had to route my external instruments, and the way you do this is if you have, let's just create a new instance really quickly so that you guys can see this. So if we have a synth and we have a Rift Filter Lite on this channel and we want to send MIDI to this, we put it in MIDI mode, and then we just need an external instrument on this chain. So we need to group this operator and then go to the chains. This works with any synth. You can just put an external instrument in parallel, and then just send MIDI to your own channel. So right now we're on channel 10. So MIDI to channel 10, and it's going to automatically pick up Rift Filter Lite, and then we're done. That's it. Now it's just going to key track wherever we play a key, it will pick up on that. So that's how you do that. In here, I have two of these in parallel, actually, because I needed a second one because I put two Rift filters. So you can just make a second instrument rack and send it. Now in this drop down, you'll get two options for Rift Filter Lite because I have two of them in here. So this one's on the first one, this one's on the second one. If you want to rename these so that they have different names in here, that might help. But for this example, I just have two, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, now what I want to do is I want to enable this, and I have two of these running. This is an overtone and a transfer, totally arbitrary. You can use any of these different modes, but the reason I picked these is because they're really good for boosting harmonics. So I have this one up 7, so playing a fifth, and this one up 24, so playing 2 octaves up from whatever note I play. And you'll see if I arm this channel. Let's turn this down for a second just so we can see that this is key tracking. Wherever I play a note, it's going to follow. And then I have both the morphs on here inverted. So I just hit invert range on one of these, and then now these are just both morphing. And again, just so you can hear how much expression we're actually getting out of Rift Filter, this is just the patch with nothing. So nuts. Okay, cool. So I'm hoping you're starting to see why I love this so much. We can really get a lot of like really advanced movements out of the sound from all the different independent band automations happening in these morphs. And then they're all key tracked and maintain this pitch value, even with all these insane automations that's happening within the morph. So really, really good for musical sounds. And I don't think there's a lot of filters out there that are focusing as much on, you know, having your tones be curated towards making like basses or musical content, leads, whatever. So this MIDI thing is awesome for key tracking. And then there's one more if we use the keys. So this is just, again, a really simple phase plant patch. Nothing to it really, just some saw waves, whatever. And then on here we just got, again, distortion, reverb, compressor. Pretty basic. And then on the Rift, we've got the resonance cranked as always, and then I'm actually picking just a few notes in a scale here and then scanning through them on the tune mode. And remember, even though this readout isn't updating to be these notes specifically, it's only hitting these values as I scroll through the frequency spectrum now. So now let's listen to this. Crazy. So I'm just going to play a chord. Let's like... So yeah, you can see how deep the rabbit hole goes as you can just keep adding infinite of these in series or parallel, and you can automate all these values. One thing that's really worth knowing also in this tune mode is that when you automate, it's going to give you note readouts on here, which is amazing because it makes it really easy to, even if you didn't have this scale lock, you could actually just really easily choose your notes, which I find to be a problem with this type of filter usually, but this is a great workaround for that. And then also when you have the snap engaged, you're going to skip over all the notes that would be in between. So with this automation, if I didn't have the scale lock, I'd still hear every increment in between. Whereas with this, it's going to just snap right to the next note in your scale or whatever. If it's not even it's just one note, it'll just keep snapping to that without hearing any of the increments in between. So useful for different things, but I find myself kind of playing with all these different tuning options a lot and kind of just slamming harmonics into big effects racks that have like compression, distortion, reverb, that sort of thing. But endless possibilities with this. And then also, obviously, you got all your basic filter types. So in my opinion, other than the low CPU impact of using autofilter, like pretty much the only time I'd use this now is just for like this and doing nothing else. But if I'm trying to get any sort of movement in my filter beyond just using it as like a mixing tool to like slightly change the high and top end with a quick high pass, low pass, anything beyond that, I'm reaching for this every time because it's just going to give me way more options. I have the ability to tune it. I have the ability to automate like the spread and all of these options that I'm just not going to get on a default filter and that most default filters do not provide. This is very much like something you would see in a synth that you can now just use out of the box, which is pretty awesome. And it's free. So yeah, go grab it, support minimal, all that. And once Rift is out, I'm sure I will see you guys again. So Until then, appreciate it. Take care.